Welcome to the Point of No Return podcast, a show at the intersection of technology and strategy. On this show, we interview industry leaders and experts to better understand how they think about strategy during this time of exponential progress.
Hey guys, welcome to the Point of No Return podcast. I'm your host, Nectar. On today's show, I had the real pleasure of speaking with François Arbour. François and I go way back to 2004, actually, where we both worked at a cool interactive agency called César, where he was a Flash developer. François is a true entrepreneur. He founded his first company at the age of 19 before going to work in marketing for Bell, as well as other big agencies like Cossette and Sidley. He worked on major accounts like Adidas, Cirque du Soleil, GM, Molson. He then founded Premium Beat in 2005. Premium Beat is a music production library for television, movies, and other media. In a few years, Premium Beat went from being a side project for François to a company that includes brands like Facebook, Apple, Google, Tesla, and even Barack Obama as some of its customers. In 2015, François sold Premium Beat to Shutterstock and stayed on board as vice president of products until 2017. Today, François is a really active angel investor and mentor in the startup community. We had a really good, deep conversation about a wide variety of topics. We spoke about, how and why he's invested in 17 startups so far, and his plans to invest in many more. Why he doesn't like SaaS investments, which was a very interesting and contrarian point of view. The joys he gets from angel investing, as well as some of the headaches, the myths around customer acquisition, where he's an expert, when he realized that Premium Beat was going to be more than just a hobby and was going to be really his full-time project. And then we got into the nitty-gritty about the supply and demand model of Premium Beat. It was a really good, interesting conversation. I learned a ton. François was very generous with his time and provided some really good insights. I learned a ton not only about investing, but also what it takes to have a successful exit. And I really hope that you enjoy the show. François, thanks for being on the show today, man.
My pleasure.
It was good to catch up. God, I've known you now for 13, 14 years, right? I think there's like a good 10 years I hadn't seen you, and we were able to catch up more recently.
Yeah.
Maybe as a first question, what is Arbour Investments and what are you doing today?
So Arbour Investments is basically just my holding. So I don't really publicize the brand too much, but it's basically my investment effort. So I'm basically now an angel investor in about 17 different businesses. So I started investing when I sold my business in 2015. And so I've been basically investing under the name Arbour Investment just as a holding. So I'm doing that, and I'm also investing through funds like different 500 startups and possibly other funds that I'm looking at.
Interesting. And so you went from being an operator to an angel investor, right?
So I actually thought about investing a bunch while I was building the business, but I felt it was very distracting, and I'm a big believer in focus when you build a business. And so I ended up not investing. I didn't have as much capital either. So I thought that the best investment was to basically double down on Premium Beat, which is my business, instead of investing in other people's companies. I also didn't have much time to spend on other, to help other entrepreneurs. I was, it's enough work for
it's more than a full-time job.
Yeah, exactly. So so I've been doing this 2.5 years.
Yeah, and do you miss being an operator at all? Now that it's been 2.5 years, it's been 4 months that basically you're not at Shutterstock anymore.
Exactly. So I miss the going to an office with a bunch of people you love and kind of having a good time and communicating a vision. But I did this for 12 years, so I don't think I really miss it at this point. I might miss it at some point, but for now, I actually love the idea of working on multiple projects. It's fun to be involved in dozens of businesses and kind of jumping from one problem to the other, because when you do the same thing for 12 years, you know the topic so well that it's not, you're not learning as much. And now I'm discovering like crazy new markets, like, I don't know, dog food and, clothing and biotech and ed tech and all these crazy things. So I have fun when I learn, and I learn a lot more now than I did in the last like 2-3 years of the business, where I was kind of like, okay, this is very profitable, high growth, but I don't learn as much.
What else excites you about this, this new phase in your career?
Basically, what excites me is one of the things I love to do the most is teaching, and I love to teach through mentorship. So that's how I learned. Actually, when I was 18, my uncle hired me as a web developer, like a webmaster back then. And he basically taught me how to do basic HTML and everything. And I through kind of a, master and a student program. So I really liked that way of learning and teaching. So I had students or mentorees after that all through my career. And now I do it with different entrepreneurs, and I love it. It's teaching is the best way to learn, right? It's like it forces me to kind of solidify my knowledge and organize it in a way that I can transfer it. So it's really, I don't know, it's just a good feeling. And after you get done with the session, you just feel good about, you just helped someone, have a breakthrough, or you transfer some knowledge. There's something about it that's really exciting and fun.
Yeah, and you can't fake it, right? Like if you haven't delivered value, like the person across the table, you're gonna know, right?
Yeah, they're gonna call you bullshit.
Yeah.
So no, it's fun. I try and stay within my areas of knowledge. I usually co-invest with super smart investors, and I don't claim to know everything about business. There's a lot of things I suck at, right? So I'm really bad at operations. I'm not good at finance. I don't know anything, or like not much about legal. It's not my thing, but I do know a lot about customer acquisition and branding and product market fit and kind of strategies and business models, and then a decent amount in tech too. So that's what I like working on with these entrepreneurs. And I don't love the whole process 100% of investing. I actually kind of despise a part of the process, which is the negotiation phase and the legal, the due diligence. Like that's to me, that's if I could do away with that and just like not have to deal with that, it would be great. That's not my favorite part. I really like the kind of first couple meetings after the deal is done, and you kind of like, okay, tell me about your problems, tell me about your pain points, tell me how I can contribute, and then you get in and you try and connect the dots, or like open your connections. Like, oh, I might know someone for this, and have you thought about doing this, and how do you see the future of the business? And so it's fun. For now, I find it as much fun as being an entrepreneur, but I don't know. We'll talk about. I'll do this in 5 years, and I'll tell you.
I'll tell you.
Yeah, exactly.
Hopefully sooner than that.
Yeah.
And what do you think is the biggest misconception when it comes to angel investment? Right, I'm sure you talk to a lot of people in your network. What is the biggest myth?
I think people. I would say the biggest one is the difference between value on paper and actual value. People are like, I tripled my money, I doubled my money. But if you look at it, like on paper, because of the last valuation of the last round, yes, maybe you doubled the valuation, but you get diluted first, and second, there's no cash in the bank, right? If there's no exit, there's no cash, or maybe at some point dividends or something. Yeah. But so it takes a lot of time. I've only been doing this for 2.5 years, and I've been lucky to have an exit in the first 11 months. But it's, I know that it could take 5, 8, 10 years to make a profit. So I think the biggest misconception is that it's easy. If you have the capital, you just invest it and it's easy and the returns are crazy. And because people hear stories about like, oh, I invested in Facebook when it was worth 50 million, and now I'm a billionaire. But the truth is, most of these deals are extremely risky. Businesses fail all the time. And if you look at the aggregate of your portfolio, it might not be as, crazy as the stories you hear. Maybe you're going to end up doing 15, 20% year-over-year growth, annualized growth. Maybe you're going to lose money. You can lose everything.
And how do you, I'm sure you approach it as it's like as a standalone business, right? What is the success metric? I think you mentioned growth, year-on-year growth. Are there any other metrics like time to exit? How do you, if you had to put KPIs on a dashboard, what would those KPIs be?
Well, yeah, obviously, I do look at the value of the business, even if it's just on paper. That's one metric. That's usually how the portfolio is evaluated. So you look at the latest round, and basically, I want businesses that grow, or fail, but like the worst is when it takes your time and it turns into a lifestyle business and it just flattens and it stays at the same level and that there's no exit. The people pay themselves, there's no profit, but it's like break even, but I still have to like put time in the business. It really hasn't happened that much to me yet. It might happen as we go, but that's the most frustrating part.
Yeah.
So yeah, basically growth is you're an investor, you want growth, exits. So those would be the two one basically, because at the end of the day, I really enjoy doing this, but I do want to make a return on my capital, obviously.
Of course, yeah. And do you have a hypothesis yet as to like the types of businesses that you look at, or is it a mixed bag right now?
It is. So I started 2.5 years ago. My theory was I really enjoy mentoring entrepreneurs. I'm just going to do this and see how it goes. So I wanted to learn basically because I'm somewhat new at it. But I do now, after a couple of years, I feel like the businesses that are more interesting to me are businesses that don't have a lot of revenue concentration. So the worst thing for me is 2-3 clients with huge amount and you lose one client. You know what it is. We worked in the agency together. If you lose one client, you lose 20% of your revenue. That is like, I invest very, very rarely in businesses with too much revenue concentration. Service as an investor is, it's not for me. Some people invest in businesses, service businesses, but that is exactly the type of business that's going to plateau at some point and be a great business for the owners, but not for an investor.
Yeah.
So service businesses I stay away from usually. I love to invest in businesses that have in entrepreneurs that have a real talent at acquiring customers in a super smart and scalable way. So the latest, actually one of the recent investments I made is in Coffre de Rachel. It's called. It's basically like a subscription business for tights for women. And these girls are really good at acquiring customers for really cheap, and because they were born with social media. They know how to build a relationship with customers, and it's pretty impressive to see. So I like businesses that really know how to buy customers cheaply, because we can talk about it more if you want, but customer acquisition is brutal. It's absolutely brutal. The more and more the cost of acquisition it goes up. Facebook is we're all competing for the same pool of people, right?
Yeah.
And it's a bid system. So I remember when I started Premium Beat, you could get a click, a super qualified click for 4 cents, 5 cents.
I remember in AdWords, it used to be like 3 cents cost per click, and once it went to 6, you're like, what the hell? Why is it 6
I wish
cents
I had invested more in advertising back then, but we didn't have money. But so yeah, I feel like businesses that are smart with customer acquisition, and just generally, I look for founders who are just like all around good people. I really believe in the importance of company culture, and also I don't want to work with assholes.
Yeah.
Right. So my main thing is work with people that I connect with, that have a good business model, but more like the most important thing is good people.
I've only done 3 deals in my career, and it's funny you mentioned it because it's like it's sur une main, right? Like I've not done that many, but the ones where I don't know if I'd go for a beer with that person, have also not been the best deals, right? Like I find it's like you have to have a values fit.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, otherwise, how can you? Because I consider myself, I catch myself saying, "Hey, we just raised money," or "We just launched." When I talk about one of my startups, because I feel like I'm part of the team and I want to be part of the team. And I for me, I wouldn't join a team if it was just a bunch of douche, like I want to be with smart people, with a good heart and good values. And, because the reality is I don't really need to do this, and I don't want to spend my time with crappy people. I want to surround myself with good people. And usually it follows, like, once you open that box of like, good people bring good people, right? So it's really fun now. I have an awesome network of amazing smart people, and I don't know. I don't want to connect with people that just don't fit my values.
I want to go deeper on one issue because I find it's one of personal interest. You mentioned customer acquisition. And it's evolved so much, right? I was talking before we started recording, your interview from a few years ago about techniques to acquire customers when you were at Premium B. What do you think today has become, like, it's the paradox. It's never been easier to start acquiring customers online, but it's harder to monetize and make profits, I find, because of the auction-based feature of, let's say, both AdWords and Facebook. What do you think today is, are there any like tips and tricks or quote unquote hacks?
I feel like, so I in the rise of the SaaS businesses, like everyone had a SaaS business. Basically 6-7 years ago, you could have a decent idea, raise a bunch of money, and then just throw money at customer acquisition, even if you had to throw $4 or $5 for $1 of revenue, and you had a hockey stick, and then you could potentially sell the business, even if you're not profitable, with the promise of later, down the road profits. I feel like those days are gone now. It's like you have to actually have a really good, valuable product. So, I mean, I don't know if it's a tip, but build an actual useful product.
It starts with good product.
Yeah, exactly. You can't get away with shitty product, even if you're great at marketing. So I feel like concentrate on your product. Product consistency, pricing. Make sure that there's actual value there, and A/B test everything. Have a two-way communication with your customers. We all see the little intercom at the bottom right. Like that's a sign. It's important to get feedback quickly. But there's no. So the barrier to entry is much lower than it used to be 15 years ago. But I feel like it's harder to actually build a profitable business today because because customer acquisition is so damn expensive and competition pops up all the time. It's actually why I don't look at many SaaS businesses. It's pretty rare that I look at SaaS businesses. That's actually why, because it's not that expensive to start a SaaS business. With Amazon, AWS, everything is scalable instantly. You don't really need an ops, like a DevOps in your early days of the business. There's There's like DigitalOcean, the like super easy setups for servers, auto-scalable infrastructure. Everything is so accessible and easy. There's like marketing automation. So all of these things are amazing, but you know the true essence of a successful business is the product and the experience. So
that's good. Yeah, that's great. That's really interesting. I'm gonna maybe switch gears and talk about a little bit about your past at Premium Beat. I think because you've been very generous in your time over the past few years to share, you know, your learnings and what you did there, and obviously had a great exit a few years ago. I guess my first general question is, when did you realize that Premium Beat was going to be more than just a side project, but it was going to be, let's say, something you're going to dedicate, your 100% of your time to?
I would say, so it was really a side project for a while because I worked at Bell and then at Sidley while I was building the business. And I think when we reached $500,000 in revenue a year, I was like, about like 40, 50 MRR, we figured out, okay, this could actually be something interesting. So I started paying myself, and back then I founded the business with my father, so we both started paying ourselves at that point. And I think that's where I said, oh, this could be more than a side project, because the reality is when we started it was really just to solve a problem, but it wasn't like, you have to remember, I started Premium Beat with my dad in 2004, so that was pre-YouTube. No, imagine a world where YouTube doesn't exist. So it's like, it's a while ago. I don't even think I knew what a startup was. Like, there was no startup ecosystem in Montreal, not at all. Like, it was like, oh yeah, this Silicon Valley thing, it's not for us, So for us, it was like, oh, we're going to start a business. I actually still don't really like the word startup. Yeah. I like to invest in businesses.
It's so overused.
And it's also like, you don't need to bother with profits and whatever, man. It's a startup. Yeah. I don't like, I would use it as a catch-all for the community and the ecosystem, but I like the word business much more. So when I started it with my dad, we were like, hey, we're gonna do father and son. My dad was retired, and I had this idea because I was solving my own problem of finding music online, and we were like, hey, let's put an ad in the newspaper, the actual physical paper newspaper, and get a bunch of musicians, and we'll sell the music. It's going to be easy, right? It turned out to be very hard, but we ended up being successful. But when I started, we were kind of joking, like, hey, what if we generate $1 million in revenue? Like, oh my God, we couldn't even.
$1 million.
Yeah, exactly. It wasn't. We weren't taking, like, not in my wildest dream did I think the word exit didn't exist in my mind either. Yeah. I never thought about in the first couple of years we're not like, oh my God, we're gonna sell this for millions and millions. It wasn't that. It was like, hey, we're gonna do this, and maybe we're gonna sell a couple tracks a day, and it's gonna allow me to retire maybe one day or whatever. Like, it wasn't that serious, and I think that was a good thing, because we weren't focusing on like, let's scale like crazy and and we're gonna make millions. It was more like, let's actually build a business, take our time, and do it right. I actually said no to investors in the beginning. I think they were offering $500,000 or something, and I had like $18,000 in sales total. It was very early, but I said no. I was actually kind of shy to show my numbers, so I was like, you know what? No, it's okay. I'll just do it myself. So we never raised capital. That's the interesting thing too, because we bootstrapped the business, right? And entrepreneurs are like, hey, I want to talk to you. I want to bootstrap my business too. How do you do it? I was like, well, it's not very complicated. You basically work 50, 60 hours a day at an agency, and then you work 30 hours a week at night and on the weekends for 4 years without paying yourself a dime. It's pretty simple, right? So if it was today, I would never do that. I would raise money. Yeah. I'd definitely raise money. Yeah. Smart money. Not like just raise money for raising money, but I would surround myself with more capital and. But Yeah.
So yeah, it's like what I like about your story is that, what's the expression, for you to score a goal, you have to be on the ice, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So even though you didn't, this wasn't built to be the massive success that it ended up being, well, you have to play, you have to be on the ice, right, for it to work. And I love the model, obviously, Premium Beats, but what was tougher? Was it the customer acquisition piece, getting people to come and buy, or was it getting the inventory, the supply? What was the challenge there?
It was a balance of both. That's a pretty deep topic, but what we figured out is that all of these libraries were non-exclusive, right? So it's like you're a musician, you can basically put your tracks on all of these other sites, and all the sites have the same tracks. Sometimes they're sold for $5, $40, $200, and it's literally the same thing. Imagine a place where you can buy shoes for $5, the same model at $200 at the other store. So it's basically like a race to the bottom for pricing. So what we said is like, okay, we're going to be 100% exclusive. No one else can have our music. We're going to be 100% curated, so we accepted only 1% of musicians. We're super selective. And we're basically going to build a small library of super good content, so you don't have to browse through like a million tracks. Because the reality is, if you need a track of music, you don't need 1,000. You need one track for your project, right? So we focused on optimizing. Like, I want you to buy the track with as little clicks as possible. So that was the strategy, and it is very, very different from our competitors. Nobody was doing that at that price point.
Yeah.
The super exclusive libraries were like 50,000 a track, 20,000 a track, and here we're coming in at like $30 a track. So it was super attractive for people, and because we concentrated on a few assets, each musician would make a ton more money each. So they would put tracks on 20 sites. They would put 3 tracks or 4 or 5 tracks on our site exclusively, and they would make more in 1 month on our site than they make the whole year with 20 sites combined. So they were like, why am I even bothering with these other sites? So they would put all the effort,
all their energy on.
And because they would make so much money per track, they would put more time in creating that track. And we got more quality and more quality. So as the sales went up, quality went up too. Because if you can make 500,000 over 4 years on a track, you're gonna put a lot of time in that.
So it was your flywheel essentially.
Yeah.
Focus on quality, for the musician, for the customer.
Exactly. So it was good for everyone. And so we scaled, and customer acquisition was done through a bunch of channels, but if you guys can go to premiumbeat.com/blog and you can see our content marketing efforts, that's kind of what we're known for. And as an investor, that's kind of where I shine, where I can support entrepreneurs, is really great content marketing strategy can go a long way. And for me, it was like the most scalable way to acquire customers and to build a brand.
And when did you realize that you were creating an ecosystem where musicians were living off what you guys did?
That was fun. I remember our first musician. He trusted us with 10 tracks. He was like, "Yeah, I'll try your thing, whatever." Everyone was like, "Are you crazy selling your tracks for $30 when you can like sell your tracks for 10,000 or 5,000? You're insane." He's like, "No, I trust this guy. I'm gonna try it." And so at some point he called me. He was like, "I'm gonna make 10,000 this month." And or I think no. At first it was like this year, and it was like maybe I can make 20,000. And we thought it was like crazy,
mind blown. Yeah.
He ended up. I think he sells more than $1 million a year now. Wow. And it's just insane. It's crazy. You could talk to a bunch of musicians. It's literally life changing for them. So that felt really amazing to. The music industry is such a shitty industry, and musicians get ripped off left and right, and we really, pride ourselves in or we did back then in building a great relationship with our musicians and be fair and trust me, if you are good with musicians, it attracts good musicians. They basically said, "Hey, you got to get on Premium Beat. These guys are the real deal. They're awesome. They never miss payments. They're always on time. They're super fair. And that goes a long way building your brand on the supply side. And so that's what we did. That's how we scaled the business. But again, we started with 45 tracks. It's literally nothing. We talk about an MVP, it's nothing. And I think today is probably around 10,000 tracks, but I don't think, in my view, I would never go to 1 million tracks. I think it's absolutely useless.
Yeah. Outside of maybe the acquisition, what was the most exciting part of your job when you were there?
Building a team at some point. So my father retired and basically sold his shares to me. I think it's 2013, 4 or 5 years ago. And at that point, Alex, my good friend from high school, which I had started a business with in the early 2000s, he basically joined the company as a COO, and he was really the one who organized the business as a real business, because before that we were like 2-3 guys, building a really profitable business, but there's a limit to what you can do. I was coding, I was doing the marketing, I was doing AdWords, me and my dad were doing customer service, I was listening to each and every track myself, selecting everything. I was working like insane hours, and that's not scalable at some point. So Alex really structured the company and made sure that the operations were set up for scale, and we didn't even have an office. We got an office and we hired a bunch of people, and that was exciting. Building a company culture was one of the most exciting part of the business, and we really, pride ourselves in building a world-class culture. I think until a year ago, nobody had ever left Premium Beat.
Wow. Zero turnover.
Zero.
That's insane.
So that like when I say that to people, people just didn't want to leave. It was just too good of a place to work. So we really we organized a bunch of activities, and we had a super strict hiring practice, like hire super slow and fire fast. If we had to fire, it happened twice. It was super fast, and we're very clean with people. Like, here's 6 months salary. Make sure you find something great. It's not a good fit. I hope you find something. Like, we're not, but nobody ever left until a year ago, and it was like I don't know. I was just so proud, and Alex and myself were so proud of having built that, and that company culture basically continued what me and my father had built. Being a good guy and kind of being fair to customers and providers, that radiates. If you're being an asshole on the market, and we see with a certain ride-sharing company right now, it's like it's hard to people learn that they hear things, and at some point they don't. I don't know. It tarnishes the brand, and people don't want to do business with you. So everything around the business, we tried to be as fair and just apply be a good guy principle. And maybe it takes a bit longer to build a business that way, because you're not jumping on every opportunity to screw someone and get a little bit more money. But in the end, you're more proud of what you built, and it's kind of more solid, builds a more solid foundation. So.
Yeah, it's the old expression that I like is, culture eats strategy, kind of.
Yeah.
You're building something in your own hands, and it's a reflection of you, right? Like, it could be a 10% or a 10,000 person company. Ultimately, it starts at the top, right?
Yes.
So if that person at the top is an a-hole, it's going to be reflected in the process.
Absolutely.
So it speaks to what you guys have done. No turnover. That's kind of crazy, man. Yeah. I know that. Maybe I want to ask you a few rapid fire questions. If you a few quick hit questions. What are your top priorities right now?
Number one, have fun.
Okay.
Definitely, I would say have fun. It was a rough 12 years. It's super fun building a business, but ask anyone who built a business over 10, 12 years and had an exit. It's very, very stressful. It's pretty. We don't talk about that a lot. It's all glamour and oh wow, exits and business and but the truth is it's a pretty lonely thing building a business, and it's hard and it's taxing on the health, and so right now what I'm trying to do is recharge and have fun and kind of just get energized by all the great businesses I work with, and that's, so I'd say number one, like, have fun and take it easy.
That's great. And is there anything that keeps you up at night? I guess since if you're satisfying number one, second question doesn't happen.
No, my 2-year-old, yeah.
Okay,
that's what keeps me up.
That's a good answer. And do you have a most productive time of the week, like time of the day, where you find that you're able to like crank out more work?
That kind of changes. It used to be the mornings, but again, I have 2 kids now, and the mornings sometimes I'm so tired. I'd say like 10:30 to noon.
Okay,
that's my. I think that's the time I'm most productive. But I don't right now, because I don't have a schedule. Like it kind of varies. Sometimes I have a little burst at night, in the morning and afternoon. I don't really have a specific time, but my most productive time is when I have really stimulating conversations with like entrepreneurs, and that's really where I shine. I'm not you'll never see like a 2-page email from me. Like I'm not a like sit down and write stuff. I like to be with actual like physical people and talk about exciting things, and that's where my mind gets like really in tune. So it's more of a situation and kind of context, and not really time of day.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, when you get into flow and you're more creative is when you're with people.
Exactly.
And to be cognizant of your time, maybe a few general questions, like what do you see as the outlook for early stage, quote unquote, startups, we can call them that? Do you see it as a growing opportunity, particularly, let's say, in the Quebec or Canadian market?
Yeah, absolutely. The Montreal, I'd say, or Canadian market is booming because, I mean, first of all, this is a great place to live. Like, you know, now, especially now, if you compare it to the US, like I love my American friends, but oh my God, you know, it's not the best time right now. So I feel like people want to be part of this ecosystem now, and we have such a diverse and great culture here, and we're very kind of open to new ideas and different backgrounds, and that helps a lot. We're very welcoming, and I think that helps build a good ecosystem. So I'm pretty bullish on the market here. And you know, I built the business here, and we built the business with Canadian salaries and Canadian dollars and whatever, but we sold in USD, so that was great. So that's all, you know, always a great thing. And then we sold to Shutterstock, which is a public company in New York. So for us, you know, that's the play. You build here and you sell elsewhere. And what's great is they like, you know, like Password Box and others, they basically stayed here and they hired here, and they kind of like, they're big fans of the Montreal ecosystem too. So that's where I think the opportunity is, you know, an engineer here is like 80 to 120, 140K Canadian with, you know, bonus or whatever. In the States, you know, Silicon Valley and even New York, or even smaller markets, it's like 120, 140, 180, 250. You know, you worked at Google, you know the crazy numbers. Like, it's very expensive to build a business in New York or Silicon Valley. So I feel like, you know, I don't necessarily, and we're proof, you know, you don't necessarily need to be in Silicon Valley to build a great business. And I feel like the next 5 years are going to be really, you know, you start seeing the Element AIs and the, you know, like Google coming here with and Microsoft investing. And I think the next 5-10 years, Canada is where it's going to happen.
Are there any industries or technologies that you find particularly interesting that you spend more of your time with right now?
Yeah, so now I'm trying to have a focus on e-commerce because, again, just to kind of get away from SaaS businesses a little bit. I like businesses that sell a product. It's kind of it's a clear business model. If there's a need for the product, you're good at marketing it, and I like that because of all the platforms like Shopify and WooCommerce, it's actually not that complicated to build an e-commerce store. So it enables a bunch of new businesses to participate in the e-commerce space, and there's a lot of interesting things happening. Whether it's like marketplace, payment technologies, platforms like Shopify, or even platforms built on Shopify, like plugins for Shopify. So I'm interested in that field. I mean, that's where I come from. I built an e-commerce business, so that's what I know too. So I'm looking at that, and but I invest in a bunch of different things. I invest in boring businesses, kind of more traditional. I'm looking to invest in more like real estate projects. For the first couple of years, my idea is to kind of spread my bets and look at different different markets and see what I like and see what works. But I'd say right now I have a focus on e-commerce, and ed tech is really interesting to me too. I have an investment in Classcraft, which and another one called Challenge U. And these businesses are interesting to me because I was a school reject. Like, I hated school. School wasn't for me. I barely finished high school and then never went back. I'm self-taught, and I feel like the education system needs a big overhaul.
Yeah, for me, it's almost like we're sitting here at WeWork, and there's a big whiteboard. It's like almost you need to start from scratch.
Yeah,
in essence, right? Like
pretty much.
The system is like 100 years old and hasn't changed.
Yeah.
That's why I love like the guys at Classcraft really innovating in that space. Are there any particular, let's say, more on the e-commerce startups that you find that either you invested or not that you find are really interesting, maybe that are maybe a bit below the radar? I mean,
I love smart models like the LXR, the business that just did IPO. LXR I invested in a year and something ago. These guys have a really interesting model where it's vintage luxury products. So they buy secondhand luxury handbags and luxury items in Japan and then sell it back here in North America. And what's interesting with their model is they actually buy the assets, but because it's vintage, sometimes it's like a 20-year-old bag or 10-year-old bag. It actually gains more value as time goes by. And
so even holding inventory is not a bad thing.
Exactly. Yeah. If you hold iPhones in your inventory, you're in trouble 2-3 years after, right? Yeah. It devaluates. So that's really interesting. I like that. So these businesses and the fact that they don't have a store, they have a store within a store, so they get all the foot traffic without all the costs. So I like businesses that's are different and think smart. And so either on the kind of supply side, they have something that's unique and interesting, or on the customer acquisition side, or they have a technology that's really different. But I don't have like a super specific checklists. I go with my gut feeling, and if it makes sense to me, I invest. So
random question: will Flash ever make a comeback?
I hope not. I hope not. But that was quite a. Yeah, you're for the people who don't know, I used to be a Flash developer. I was the Flash guy.
I remember you had the brand.
I had the Flash guy. So I'm sorry to everyone. I built thousands of banners, annoying banners in my past when I was a cassette, and it was a fun thing to do. Weirdly enough, like I don't think we've replaced Flash. It's still the only way to do certain things on the web. So it's funny. It's kind of, we all hate it, but there's certain things you just can't do. So it's, but no, I hope it gets completely replaced. I haven't touched it for probably 8 years or something.
I guess this is the last question, François. Where can people get in touch with you if they're interested? How do they reach out? Through you, through your network? What's the best way?
Yeah, I mean, just hit me up on LinkedIn. That's the best way. Just find me on LinkedIn and send me a message. I'm always happy to connect with cool people. And if you have a business that I might be interested in, just reach out. I have time, and I always like to go for coffee, so no problem.
Great. Great. Thanks for being on the show, François.
All right. Thank you.
Aaron.
Thank you for listening to the Point of No Return podcast. Never miss an episode by clicking on the subscribe button on iTunes or Google Play.